Helmets are for safety. Welcome back to Random, and today is actually a relatively interesting day. So in the Christian and Hebrew calendars, today's date would be synonymous with the rising of Christ, the central figure in Christianity. Of course, that also coincides with the Passover feast of Hebrew celebration. Good Friday was, of course, 2 days ago, and this being Sunday, meaning Easter Sunday. Now, on this channel, myself and my editor believe that you really shouldn't talk about two things. One, politics, and two, religion. You shouldn't talk about these two things unless you can do so in a dispassionate, historical, and factual manner. Being that religion is quite messy and politics is equally so, I'm simply going to say to those who celebrate, Happy Easter and He is risen. But today's episode is actually something that's a little more interesting, at least scientifically. We're going to be talking about one of the states of matter, but first, if it's 5 o'clock somewhere and you enjoy cold beverages and groovy tunes, check out Beer and Song of the Day. The link to that channel will be in the description down below. Now, I'm here at this dubious state-run education facility located in Logan, Utah. And like I said, we're going to be talking about one of the states of matter. Now, the states of matter are as follows: solids, liquids, gases, plasmas, Bose-Einstein condensates, and a new form that is theorized and rarely observed, nuclear pasta. That's kind of an interesting one, and it has to do with matter found in neutron stars. So that'll have to be a video on its own at a later time. So plasma, what is it? Why is it important, and why did we suddenly stop caring about it after, I don't know, 2010? Okay, so plasma, like I said, is one of the states of matter. And how do you get it? And what is it? All right, so what happens is you've got a material, we'll say iron. Now, iron by itself at room temperature is a solid. When you heat it up to its melting point, it becomes then a liquid. If you continue heating it beyond its melting point, it starts to boil, and a lot of what is off-gassed at that point is actually vaporous iron. Now, let's say you capture some of that vaporous iron and keep it suspended completely so it doesn't interact with anything else. If you were to continue heating it, it would go from a vapor to a plasmic state. Basically, the atoms of iron would become excited to such a degree that, for all intents and purposes, they would start giving off their own light. Free-flowing electrons and that kind of thing. So you're heating it and you're heating it and you're heating it, and it gets to this incredibly hot point to where it is no longer a gas, it is now in a plasma state. Now, what are some applications of plasma? Well, one of the earliest known was neon. So you take a neon gas and you apply somewhere between 50 and 100,000 volts, and it ionizes that plasma to give off light. That's how neon is able to give off light as it's charged. Same thing with fluorescent lights. So neon as a plasma gives off light. So does helium and the other noble gases, and a few mixtures of other things that gives you different colors of different neon gases. What we call neon. So as you heat it up, like I said, it gives off its own light. Now, a number of years ago, we started playing around with the idea of ionizing or converting to a plasma state different elements to produce different colors. You may be familiar with these things called plasma TVs, where they would heat up a gas to a plasma state, and it would give off photons at different frequencies, at different variations, in different amounts, and that's how a picture would be generated on a screen. Well, after a few years, you would have to go and change out the gas in that plasma tube. Kind of a labor-intensive process, but it was possible to be done. Honestly, it was just cheaper to buy another TV when that happens. So we also use plasma to cut things. you'll hear a lot about plasma cutters in things like fabrication shops and garages. What those do is they take compressed air from the shop's air supply and they superheat it to a plasma state, and they use a hot jet of that compressed gas, that compressed air, to cut through solid metal. So things like steels, your different alloys of aluminum, and so on and so forth. Fantastic at cutting. Now, past those two applications, recently there's been a development in something called cold plasma. Now, how's that possible when plasma is hundreds of thousands of degrees Fahrenheit? Well, what you do is you take the exact same principle as neon and you send 50 to 100,000 volts through an atmosphere of, let's say, argon or CO2, and you excite it to a plasmic state. And what you do is you control the flow rate so that, yes, the electricity does get the gas, quote unquote, hot to a plasma state, but it doesn't get so hot that it burns your fingers. Now, cold plasma is currently being tested and evaluated for medical use. So what they'll do is they'll take a cold plasma wand or a torch, depending on who develops it and how they want to call it, and they'll send it up and down the wound. So they'll be scanning across, like, say, a laceration. And what it'll do is it'll not only cauterize, but it'll also promote healing. So instead of slapping hot iron on a cut or an open wound or something like that, what you'll do is you'll take this cold plasma wand and slowly sweep it back and forth, and that'll help cauterize and help clean the wound and promote faster healing. And ultimately, the goal is to have the cold plasma produce a healing effect that leaves virtually no scar after it's completely healed. So that's kind of cool, right? Now, for those of us like my editor who watch things like Star Trek, they'll talk about plasma until the cows come home, right? Now, in that application, the idea is you've got such a surplus of energy, such a surplus of extra power to have on board a ship, that you can literally use plasma as a method of transferring power from one point to another. Now, the way they do it on Star Trek is they use matter-antimatter collisions in the warp core to generate massive amounts of electricity or plasma. So you've got huge amounts of plasma in a confined area. So what you do then is you transfer it from one location to another using magnetic conduits. That plasma, like I said, has free-flowing electrons in it, and you basically use induction circuits along the corridors, along those conduits, and that's how you get your power. That's how you get your electrical plasma system power taps. They're basically induction circuits. So things that charge your phones, charge your GPSs, charge other things without actually needing wires to attach to it, those are induction chargers, and it works very much the same way. That'll have to be another video, provided my editor actually makes notes that time. So, plasma, one of 6 states of matter, really cool stuff, and we're doing some really fun stuff in that research. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of experimentation to really get it right. So before you go thinking, oh, we're going to have plasma-powered microwaves in the near future, well, maybe. We have to crack fusion first, though, which is coming. So if you learned anything in this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. It helps the channel, it helps build us up. Give us ideas of what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And we'll be sure to get to it. That's it for today, and as always, keep it random.